Hello there, I'm Callum and welcome back to the Expanded Universe Holocron, as you can see above. And with me today is a different timing, of course, because then we can have a different guest on. Calls himself Quinlan Voss.
Thank you.
Hello. I think at the start of this, we might mention a couple of news things that came up, because it's fairly time sensitive as well. I just put a video up on it about Heart of the Jedi being available on Amazon at the moment. Which it's interesting. I noticed after I did my video, we have here the Amazon page, which says it's currently unavailable, unfortunately. But if I'm shipping to Australia, I click on buy it on amazon.com.au. It's available there, so it's interesting.
I bought a copy and it's still available, so I'm hoping that ships out.
Yeah, I'm hoping that it actually does come and that it's not a problem. Oh, and we have Heroine has a heroine that said can't wait. Wow, we're waiting for you to jump back. That's cool. I'm excited to get down into business, but yeah, I thought about that. And on the expandeduniverse.com as well, I got to find the article. Why is it saying it can't find it? Because I typoed. They were saying that they're going to do a push for Expanded Universe audiobooks as well, which I'm going to make sure I actually do the Chrome tab instead. That's much better. Because they're doing the unabridged audiobook of Shatterpoint, they were saying for EU fans to keep asking Del Rey and that for unabridged audiobooks of other things that have not been done yet, which I thought was pretty cool. I haven't done a video on it yet. I might talk about it. Might not. I'll see how I feel. But yeah,
I saw
all of that as well.
Twitter was putting what would you call it? Fan images of what audiobooks for Legacy of the Force could look like, and kind of creating covers for potential audiobooks going forward.
Oh, nice. I think I saw someone do some audiobook covers for New Jedi Order, which is cool. Oh, they've got some of the ones that are already out there. Now, some of the actual audio dramas compared to the audiobooks as well, which would be really cool to have for every one of them. So that's cool. I think it's just good to ask. Like, if I'm asking, I'll also go, well, what about the ones that never got audiobooks? As some people miss out on. Like, you get a lot of the Junior Novel Scholastic series that don't have audiobooks, which I'm like, well, we should have those.
That would be a lot. Would you have them compile them into like art, or would you do them book by book for the young readers?
I mean, I'll probably go book by book because that's the way they've been doing the novels as well. The main ones. Because I'm like, oh, that makes sense. If you go, this is that book, and then you go to the next book, then it makes sense to line it up with if you've got the books in the shelf and that as well. And see it on a timeline sort of thing. And I think someone commented, it just came back to my mind, about some people apparently are calling about copyright infringement and whatever for Heart of the Jedi. And I think, well, we can't get it legally. How else are we going to get it? Self-printing it, I guess. So, yeah.
I just hope stuff like this shows to Lucasfilm that this stuff will sell, because I think a lot of people have bought it as soon as it came up on the Amazon website.
Amazon, when did it go up? I only heard about it today, but then it's already unavailable on the US listing. So it's like, wow.
I'm not sure when it went up. I just saw it today as well, and was lucky to get a copy, I guess.
Yeah, because it says it was independently published on 4th of March, but I don't know if that's when it went up on Amazon. Oh. Oh, wow. Someone's already trying to sell it for $54.
On
Someone's
eBay?
already trying to scalp it. Someone's already trying to scalp it. Oh, but yeah. All right, let's get on to the actual comic and the topic of today. What do you think of, first of all, Dawn of the Jedi Force Storm? Because you weren't able to join that discussion. I'm interested to hear your thoughts.
Well, I really enjoyed Force Storm. Well, the first issue was obviously a little confusing. There was a lot of story building, and for people just jumping into the EU, I'm not sure if that's a great place to start. Now, obviously, the novel Dawn of the Jedi precedes it, but precedes the comic books, except for issue 1. But
Yeah.
Force Storm was really good. I enjoyed, I guess, some of the concepts that were starting to be introduced, and I enjoyed it overall as a whole. I thought the art was really good, and it seemed.
Oh, this actually is going back to explaining some of the origins of some things. And like with the Thoyor and that, you'd get a bit confused if you didn't have much context for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it ended with Zesh being sent to Bogan.
Yes.
And inevitably, we start off here with the Prisoner of Bogan. So, initial thoughts, what do you think?
I really liked how it started off with Zesh on Bogan resuming directly where the first arc left off. It wasted no time in getting right back into where it had left off, and I really enjoyed the character of Dagon Locke. I thought he was super interesting, and we'd seen glimpses of him in panels in Force Storm, but in Prisoner of Bogan, we finally get to learn more about him and start to see a bit into his backstory, which was really awesome.
Yeah, it is really cool. And I think I agree as well a lot with that. I just really love these comics. Seeing more of Dagon Locke in action, because they sort of hinted at him in Force. It's almost like, oh, who's this guy gonna be? How's it gonna turn out? It was good to see the follow up from that too. And yeah, and opening up with Rakatans being obvious bad guys. Let's see, I have here this one. Boom. Rakatan, obvious bad guy abusing slave.
Yeah. I mean, with some villains, you get villains who are maybe making good and those of sympathy. I never got a feeling that Rakatans were sympathetic in the story. They seemed quite heartless and perfect villains, and really liked how they looked. I thought their designer concept was pretty interesting, and it worked really well, I think, in this story.
Yeah. Like, they're a different enemy than the Sith, but you can obviously tell that this dark side has very much similarities in what they enact throughout a species when they're influenced by the dark side, is how I see it as well. Yes, Zesh still has the symbol for Osk on his face. That's one of the little art things that I criticize about it, and it's really tiny, but it's just like Zesh itself has a pointed top, but Osk has a flat top. So a lot of the panels, when you see his body, it's actually Osk instead of Zesh.
Right, and
But yeah. Go ahead.
yeah, Arabesh, it's crazy the level of detail that Star Wars writers and comic book artists put into the language of the written language of the Star Wars universe. And so I guess they were bound to make a mistake somewhere.
Yeah. I think one of the things I guess they come up with as well is What do you think about the concept of sending all the people that put the world out of balance to somewhere like Bogan instead of just doing something else with them?
Yeah, I thought that was a bit flawed, the logic there. I mean, it's the dark planet, so you're going to send dark-minded individuals there, but I guess the concept was cool, but I don't understand why they wouldn't keep him and learn more about the threat that could be impending from outside of their system. They just pretty
Mm.
much sent him away.
Yeah, and I guess that comes back to the issue of at the end of Force Storm, they were saying, "Oh, why are you doing that?" Basically, you should learn about it
Yeah.
because all the people that were called to see him in the first time, of course, recur in this. But what was her name again? Chasha Rio, I think, was the one that actually was going, "Hey, we should actually do something else with him because we need to learn about what we're seeing."
Yeah, was she the daughter of the Twi'lek Baron?
Yeah,
Okay, yeah.
it's like names versus. Oh yeah, who was that again? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I love still seeing the variety of species that we see here.
I agree. It was really great to see
That's
a
one of the
Nogri.
things. Yeah, because the Thoyor gathered species and a light-sided Sith. So there goes the Sith were always an evil species
Hmm.
and stuff like that. I see a lot of quiet moments. I think one of the things that stood out with me, if it goes along to it, is powering up the generator with Force Lightning.
Yeah, I wasn't sure how that worked exactly.
Basically, it's like the old thing of fans, and I think they introduced it because the fans kept saying, "Oh, if I Force Lightning, I'd just use it to power the electricity in my house, so I didn't have to pay the bills or something like that."
Mm,
And he used it because the Minoc sucked all the energy out of the ship here.
right.
He uses it to power up the generator with electricity and the engine instead of generating the electricity through the actual combustion engine or whatever they have. It wouldn't be a combustion engine here, but yeah, powering
Yeah.
it up with electricity.
I mean, the Star Wars galaxy sometimes seems quite different than our own, but would that
Yeah,
scientifically work?
and I would guess so. I think in universe, basically, it obviously does work in this case. So yes,
Yeah.
uh,
I really
very
liked
much. I
how
guess if you
shocked
have, mm,
I really liked how shocked Dagon seemed by Zesh using his power that way to power the ship up.
yeah, I think it was probably shocked by the tenacity, and also I think Seknos was the first person to actually, at least as we see, use Force Lightning. So maybe he didn't even know about Force Lightning before
Right.
and do that. Like I'm thinking of my car and how you need some power from the battery to start the engine turning over. And so he may not even need this much power to start it off, but he did it this way anyway. He needed the power to actually start the engine on the ship and go that way. Because of course the Minoc sucked it dry.
Yeah. I always enjoyed seeing references to the original trilogy scattered around the expanded
Yeah.
universe, and it was really great to see it 25,000 years before like we reached the movies to see that Minox still existed even then.
Yeah. Oh, even Rancors have just got a great legacy. Because in these comics we see the Rancor
Flying
dragon, which
Rancor.
is really
Yeah,
awesome. The flying Rancor, which is just like
yeah.
that's where I say these lean a bit more heavily on the side of fantasy compared to hard
Mm,
science fiction, especially since it's going back to the early days and all that.
Right, there's definitely a more
Which is
primitive feel to Dawn of the Jedi.
yeah. Oh, where's my next one? I gotta remember which way I'm going. That's number
I
2.
saw as you
There.
were flipping through the pages of the comic book, the Grand Master of the Jedi was talking with the bald Jedi, and the bald Jedi was actually he actually appeared in some way, shape, or form in KOTOR, I believe, because if you go to his
Oh
his
yeah,
Wikipedia page, you will see
Master
that guy
Rajaviri,
is.
right?
I think that might be correct. I can't think of his name right now, except for
Because
the
I,
Jedi
I
who's
think as I
bald.
was reading it, I remembered Master Rajaviri has quite close connections to the start of the Jedi Consular story in Star Wars: The Old Republic, and they're connected in
Yes,
that
you're
way.
right. It's Rajaviri. It's Rajaviri. I
Nice.
found page introducing him. So that was interesting and good to see references to other eras.
Yeah, and how Swirtle connected everything in together. Because I think they must have been writing these about the same time as Swirtle was being written. And Swirtle
Right.
was released that bit earlier in 2011, and these were released later. So they did all of that. I was just looking at the opening page of the next one. I'm like, the Cathar have been depicted in so many different styles over the years.
They originally appeared in Tales of the Jedi, right?
Yeah. And even then, going from the first Tales of the Jedi, I was thinking of Silver. And then you go to Tales of the Jedi Redemption, they look quite different.
They do. The art style really changed in that series.
Yeah. Like it was mostly the same throughout most of the Tales of the
And then
Jedi. Of course,
Redemption
it
changed
changed a
it.
bit. Yeah, and then Redemption looks really awesome.
It does.
But Redemption changed it. And so here we have the Cathar shown here, which I think is a good blend of the two that we usually
I
see.
always thought Tem the dog looked, or however you pronounce that. I always thought he looked really cool.
Yeah. He's Mad Dog. Yeah. He looks cool. And I think for the Cathar, they're cat people, basically. So they're going, oh, let's have that blend of making him look sort of feline without going too human or too much like a cat. Which is interesting how they tried to depict that, I think.
And I really liked the job that was given to Tem Medog. I really liked how he was I believe it was the master of the forge.
Yeah. The
That
forge
was
where they
really,
created all their lightsabers and all that in the end.
yeah, that really fascinated me that that job was needed back then.
Mm. I think they forged their swords there as well before they used lightsabers. And so he was like a weapons master, basically. And then they had someone for that. And I do find it interesting how they're trying to figure out what the Force Saber actually is and how it works. And that's an interesting side plot to the main one throughout the whole thing.
I agree. I really liked how it was portrayed that you needed to focus on the dark side more to activate the Force Saber. That was interesting.
Yeah, and I think we see it a lot with other Rakatan technology as well when we look through other pieces of EU, where you see the Star Forge and other stuff like that. They don't tend to be operated by the light side of the Force. And they tend to a lot be operated by the dark side. And then showing here a bit of how it influences people when they do that. Yeah, I flick through a bit. I think how they set up the Force Hounds for the Rakatans is really cool.
I agree. It reminded me a little bit I'm not sure why, but the process of putting the dark side really in them and really creating the Force Hounds reminded me a little bit of the Force Unleashed and the bit with all the clones that they had there and what they were doing there. It's not the same, obviously, but the style used to portray it kind of reminded me of that.
Yeah, similarities for sure. And the way of sort of it's the dark twist on what the Jedi did in the prequels, and that is taking them when they're children and making them into what you want them to be. It's like take children to be Jedi when they grow up, or in this case, there are cartoons take children to be Force Hounds when they grow up.
Yeah. I like that they built a bit of backstory though between Zesh and what's her name, the other Force Hound?
Trill. Yeah.
Trill, that's it.
They're all given a designation in Orabesh, which is interesting. So Trill is one of the Orabesh characters, and that's what you see on her face with the thing on her nose that comes out on the sides. And Zesh is meant to have the symbol for Zesh on his face and over his body when he goes shirtless in one of the panels.
Yes.
I think that might be in Force War. I forget now. But that's not huge spoilers. But the way the art's drawn, they weren't distinct on that it was Zesh. Anyway, that's how they branded their Force Hounds. So that's interesting.
Yeah. That is interesting. I always liked the art throughout the series. Gender Sema, she always put so much attention to detail, in my opinion, to faces. It just looked really, really good.
Yeah, I really enjoy it, especially going from reading the old Marvel comics and then seeing how the art's progressed in Dark Horse to these comics that were right near the end of what was coming out for the EU. It looks great.
I definitely agree. And her art was what partly got me in love with the EU, because it was her comics that first made me discover Quinlan Voss and then Dawn of the Jedi. And I really followed John Ostrander and Jander Sema's works closely because of
that's awesome.
how captivating it was.
Yeah. And then we get to the whole thing of what were they saying again here? They were the whole subplot of Tasha and her father. That was interesting.
Yeah. Her father was the crime lord who wanted her to take her place beside him, and yet her mother was the Jedi who obviously didn't want her to leave.
Yeah, and then she ended up making her own decision, which is really cool. But then that whole subplot playing out.
Zabrak Jedi, wasn't he also from the Old Republic?
Oh, this one
somehow through that.
I forget his name now. Hang on. Because there's a few Zabrak Jedi. And it's just working out who it was. If you come across his name, let me know. I won't hang too much on it. But I don't remember this name particularly standing out to me, but that can be just me not remembering.
Yeah, I think he was, if I recall correctly.
Interesting. I got it. How do you spell his name now?
Ters.
No.
Then obviously a space, Sendon.
Yeah, if that helps. I was like, there we go. Yeah, that's probably where it appears in a hologram, the first in Cells Republic. My problem with that is I probably never connected it because the Zabrak in the Republic looks so different to the Zabrak in the comics.
They do.
And that's because of the character creator a bit. But you do see how he has some tattoos and stuff as well there, which is cool. And what's interesting about this as well is we get the holocron from, what were they called again? I'm having a moment.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, the Qua that were fighting against the Ricardans, it says in that panel. And it's just small on the other screen. The hologram from the Qua, how it's like there could be a whole story told about the Qua versus the Ricardans that led to this point as well, which would be really cool to read.
Definitely.
And that's part of world building as well.
Was there a panel that showed the fight between them? I think there was some panels that depicted the fight a little.
Yeah. They were showing sort of a summarized history of what happened with the Crown and the Ricardans to the Jedi Seers. Which is another point as well, the Jedi Seers having a specific role, which is very much like in the Knights of the Old Republic comics as well, in that how they specifically have Seers, which then later on sort of became less and less that they had the specific role.
Yeah, well, the Seers in the Knights of the Old Republic comics kind of messed up a bit, didn't they?
Yeah. That's probably why they don't have that particular role anymore.
Yeah. Now, the Jedi with the long blonde hair, Jake Fenn, I believe his name was. As soon as I saw him, I just put him in my mind as Thor Jedi. That's what I thought.
Or he looks like Legolas.
Yes. Now Dax Jenner from Dark Time really looked like Legolas in his first appearance.
That's probably where you go. That's cool though. And then you see this. No, I can't zoom in there. You see that, and you're like, yeah, that looks. I like that godlike sort of thing. I think this is where they do the flashback into the Despot War as well, which is really cool.
Yeah, and isn't that didn't we get somewhere around here the visions of Dagon Locke from when he was
I think
in
so.
the Abyss?
Because Hawk had the same vision.
Right, he just didn't want to share it because then they'd give him the same fate they gave Dagon.
Yeah. He's like, yeah, I didn't believe it. I didn't see a vision. Right, yeah. That's interesting how it foretells what we know would happen based on what's been referenced later on in Tales of the Jedi and stuff, how there was the Jedi versus the Dark Jedi, and then the Dark Jedi went to Korriban and founded what became the Sith ideology, which is really interesting. And that would be no spoiler because you should know that already, yeah?
Are we supposed to be giving spoilers, or?
I think I would say don't give spoilers for the specific comic run.
Yeah.
But if we're talking about this now, so we're talking about Prisoner of Bogan, we can talk about Force Storm. We can talk about this, and I wouldn't talk too much about Force War until we get to it.
Right.
When it's stuff that's overarching, sort of context stuff, like, oh, this could be this, like I mentioned about what we know that is just. I feel like it should be general knowledge for the EU. But some context stuff like knowing that the Dark Jedi went to Korriban to form the Sith and that is very much stuff that I can go, well, yeah. That very connected into these visions and what happens later.
Yeah.
Oh, and then Hawk goes mad. Yeah.
Yeah. I really like the character of Seknos. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, he's really cool. And he's the first Sith Jedi that we actually see as well.
Which is really neat, yeah. Because, like you said earlier, it does show that they were never a purely evil race.
Yeah. And we see some diversity there. And they're investigating and about to go off planet, which is interesting because Force Storm is all on Typhon.
Yes,
And
now we
then
finally get to see.
now we're going off to other planets in the system.
And I really like that feel, the chase that started building up as they're going from world to world.
Cool. And
I guess
it's interesting because I do really like how they limited the technology in these. How you can go, oh, that is actually just swords rather than lightsabers, and oh, they only have sublight drives instead of being able to travel around everywhere. I really like the technology gap between Dawn of the Jedi, which their name should have the technology gap, to the later on Star Wars EU, which is really cool.
I agree. I thought the authors did a good job making it still have the feel of Star Wars with certain technology still being available, but really limiting it to still feel primitive in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah, for sure.
With Force Storm, I guess since it was all pretty much on Tython, there was a feeling of not much that they could do. If that makes sense, that they had to confine it to the planet a little.
They've sort of explored the planet now, and then the next series they sort of had to get off of it.
Yeah.
If they were following the same characters anyway.
Right.
Because it is interesting how the Jedi found that whole balance thing by being on Typhon, but the balance is actually them being on the light side. Which is a great example of people that try to say, oh, great Jedi and all that. And then you go, well, when they say balance, here's a clear depiction of what it means. Just look at this and go, oh, they were on the light side and that didn't cause problems. But when they went dark side, that's when all the problems occurred. Which is very interesting to me.
Yeah, it's very interesting to see, like, the Jedi's views really did change a lot over time from the primitive Jedi to the Jedi we saw in the movies, then even to Luke's Jedi Order.
And I think that Luke's Jedi Order comes back to the roots of the Jedi. Well, that's how I pronounce it. Because they're so similar. The Jedi here in Dawn of the Jedi comics. And so it's going back to what the Jedi are meant to be a bit more, but also taking on the lessons that are learnt of what failed of the previous Jedi as he learns more, which ends up going back to the original Jedi, which is interesting. But apart from sending people to Ashton and Bogan and whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then we end up having the next lot here. Can we do this? That just shows me. Okay. So we have, this is when the Qua ends up, I forget the Qua's name now, but he ends up sharing the backstory of what happened between the Qua and the Rakatans. Which you can sort of read. Oh, he's sort of talking to him, but then he refuses. Then later on, he shows it. Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't.
Oh, that is where he says about it, but it's sort of, I thought it went for more pages in my brain.
Yeah, and
yeah,
even in all those little boxes, there's a ton of story that was able to be told.
Yeah. So you need to really read it for yourself because it won't be the best quality on stream to be able to do it. I do think that the skulls here must have been a reference to Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Yeah.
With the shape of them.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. They also kind of look like Sarian skulls, don't they?
I do like, yeah, I do,
Yeah.
I do like the whole. He sees the skull and he's so terrified that he doesn't speak at first by seeing
Mm.
the skull that brought about the destruction of his people. That was interesting.
Yeah. And then he knows, oh, they're coming. We're done. Gotta go now. Yeah. Resizing it. It works best like that anyway. We have some cool different creatures, which Trill's fighting, which is interesting because you get to see Trill's skill in fighting other monsters, isn't it?
And the planet they're on, what was its name?
Krevko. Oh yeah.
I really
Cur
like that
means
planet.
heart in French, I think. Yeah.
It was an interesting concept for that planet with like all the all the crystals everywhere. I think they explained
Yeah.
what exactly those were, but
Yeah, these crystals. There are probably a variety of crystals, but also it was the crystal that where you would eventually find would work in force sabers and eventually probably lightsabers too.
right. It
So it
says
is
glass.
interesting. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it says glass spires rise above a silica desert, and then the shattering sounds of crystals moving along the planet.
That's cool. And I was thinking it's interesting how the though your chips end up bringing them to a system with everything that they would need to build lightsabers.
Yeah,
Like they
they
specifically
brought them to
picked
the
it.
ideal system. Yeah,
Mm.
they brought
And
them
then
there so
they're
that they could
exploring.
see the representation between light and dark, and yet have a system to explore
Yeah.
that would provide the needs as they progress in their knowledge.
Yeah, for sure. And I think this was the reveal of was it? It's in these comics anyway. There's the reveal of Dagon Locke's illusions and how he can twist people's minds,
Yes, yes.
which is really cool.
I thought that was an excellent force power as well, and I thought the duel down in the crystals there was a really interesting concept. Like not really anything we'd seen before in the expanded universe. It looked just really cool
Yeah, it
visually.
does. They have a setting of the crystals. Like this could be something that they could have. We could have tried to have later on, like Ilum or something, to have a battle amongst where there's a heap of lightsaber crystals and stuff. Like below here, you can probably see there's some blue ones that you go, oh, they look like lightsaber crystals, and stuff like that.
In Last of
And
the
then,
Jedi, the
yeah,
young readers novels, there was actually a duel on Ilum between some surviving
mm,
Jedi and stormtroopers out in the caves.
yeah. So if you saw that visually, it'd probably be fairly similar, apart from blaster shots going everywhere. It would be interesting
Yeah,
if the crystals actually sort of refracted blaster shots around, so you didn't know which way they were coming from.
like shooting blasters in a hall of mirrors or something like that.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Have some cool stuff with that. Ah, yes. Seknos is one angry guy.
Mm.
I don't know why they're so pent up about finish your time on Bogan. Yeah. Like that'll help when he has no idea. I think that was the point they were making actually, was like that would help when he has no idea what actual normal life and the light side is actually be like.
Visually, Seknos Wrath looks awesome in a fight.
Mm. Oh, especially how they have the blue around him and he's got the red skin. They definitely
Yeah,
planned that.
yeah, definitely. Uh, pops him off of the page there.
And a lot of cool stuff there.
Yeah.
And I love the little panels of just showing his hand slip.
Yeah.
Because you can see the information that you need, and then bam.
Yeah. That's part of the wonder, I guess, that comics can create. Comics can create illusions like that. I like that they all got pretty scratched
You
up
feel
in that fight.
Yeah. Like you don't see the females. Oh yeah, I'm still good afterwards. Like, oh, that was tough. No scratches on her at all. Yeah, no scratches.
Yeah, they all got
And that sort of stuff.
They all got pretty banged up in that fight, pretty hurt.
And then you have the Cthulhu creature. Yeah, I love how they go back to like this is very similar to the look of Cthulhu with his head and that fantasy type feel.
Right, I'd never thought of that before.
Yeah,
and then
that's very much the thing of these comics.
Yeah, you were saying the fantasy feel instead of leaning more towards fantasy than sci-fi.
Yeah, it's really cool part of it.
No, I really like that the little girl that they rescued seemed kind of skeptical, maybe, and skeptical of the Jedi and who they were. We're already seeing that the public doesn't totally always trust the Jedi that much, I guess. Like, we continue to see that in the Clone Wars era, stuff like that.
And we're seeing the sentiment against the Jedi from the Despot Wars, probably as well from what Dagan Locke did and everything, and how, while they're trying to do the right thing, they're not really treating the people that were born without Force sensitivity really that well.
Yeah.
And not fostering that understanding between them.
Jedi just never in any era really understood feelings that well, I guess. True grasp on non-Jedi feelings, at least.
Oh, that was interesting. It's good I go through this again because I'm like, oh, there's a Sith doctor or nurse.
Yes. I'd probably just assumed that was Seknos at a glance, not realizing he was still back on the planet falling.
Yeah. And so we've got Sith. I mean, they were all born from the original ones that came there. Well, these are the non-Force sensitive, so they don't get trained as Jedi, which is cool.
Right. Yeah.
And then the cliffhanger before. Yeah. I love what ends up happening in Force War.
Yeah, that meeting becomes pretty important, I guess, in how the character arcs turn out.
Yeah. It's a shame we don't have more in between, but hey.
I was really upset. It up. Yeah, that they had to wrap it up so abruptly with Force War, because they could have done so much more in building up to that conflict.
Yeah. I guess at least they wrapped it up instead of they started building up towards it and then nope, it's done. And then we see Trill to get it on with Seknos, Well, also hiding who she is, which is really cool. Yeah. So to influence him. And this is a really cool part. I love seeing how he created the Force Saber.
Yeah, that was very interesting. And we also saw here more of Dagan's effects on people's minds as he influenced the person there.
Yeah.
The color of the Force Sabers, the purple and the purples and yellows, I believe, are the colors, but the purple really looked nice, in my opinion, throughout the comic series there.
Yeah, it's a beautiful color, and then they pick for it. I think that it also sort of has a symbolism from when we usually see like Revan is with a purple lightsaber in fan art and stuff. And that's what people associate someone that's going back and forth between dark and light side.
Right, all the people who think the Grey Jedi were their own faction. Grey Jedi are sometimes
Yeah.
portrayed with yellow or purple lightsabers.
Mm. Although the Grey Jedi sort of don't really, but I think it's interesting to think of it as a connection to Revan. Because Revan
Yeah.
is a great example of why a Grey Jedi, as far as I use his dark and light side, doesn't work. Because he's either one or the other, and he gets literally split apart. Even though they could have done better with Swator, but that's the example we have. Is he gets literally split apart when it happens again,
Yeah.
and
There
that
was
sort of
no
stuff is cool.
in between, no merging of it, I guess.
Yeah. Like, if you don't want to use the dark side, then they're just using it as an excuse for doing whatever they want anyway, and that's dark side. So, yeah, that's all interesting. Then we end up going to this one. I gotta just check which one's which again. So I'm doing it this way because it helps jog my memory as well. How they have Hawk going after Dagon. Dagon also suits them up with new outfits, which I think look cool.
Yeah, and that cover art there, I always thought looked really cool, and was glad that was the art they chose to put on the graphic novel.
Yeah, that's the one they put on the trade paperback.
Yeah.
Which is really cool.
The art is just brilliant throughout.
Yeah, I mean, the only fault is them mucking up the Orabesh on Zesh. That's the only thing I pick out of it. That's the only thing.
That's their only mistake.
Yeah. But because everything else is so good, the little things stand out more to me.
Yeah, that's true. And then
And so
here
we
we're
do
seeing
see
some of the generals from the Despot Wars.
Yeah, and we get more background on what Dagon actually did with Queen Shikakwa and that.
Yeah. And I
think
really liked how we again saw more diversity in even the generals. They were all different species, which was really cool.
Yeah. There's no thought of speciesisms with humans and that, like the later Empire has.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. How you can see the show of unity between all of it. I forget what species was that lady.
Deveronian.
Deveronian.
Devorian, yeah. The males have the bald heads.
I forgot that. I had a moment that I forgot that they didn't have horns, that they just looked different.
Yeah. that was really an interesting concept, the Deveronians, how like the genders like looked like two different species entirely.
Yeah. And of course it makes sense, right? Because you get other species in here on Earth where I guess originally the evolution of the Deveronians would be the Deveronians need the horns to appear intimidating and to fend off other males and whatnot.
Yeah.
To win over the woman, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then it evolved into them doing that, which is cool.
Yeah.
And you see Zesh's outfit. Yeah. That's the one we see. This time will be different. Uncomfortably close, yeah.
Yeah, and I like that Dagon kind of cleaned himself up. He looked like a wild man, and then meeting with those generals again, he kind of cleaned himself up a bit.
Yeah. He sort of was like, okay, I did everything, but I was... No, they had no facilities to clean yourself up properly on Bogan, so they're probably just like... Dagon cleaned himself up, and Zesh ended up cleaning himself up.
Yeah.
And I like how it goes into the underworld a bit more. There.
Yeah.
It's cool. And we get a
lightsaber battle. Yeah. The battle on
the first
lightsaber
really cool battle chronologically.
Yeah, and I was trying to think back to the Into the Void, the novel, and there were no lightsaber battles there. There was just
Yeah,
battles
they
of
only had
swords.
their swords. Yeah.
Yeah, their blades. Yeah.
Also, for Into the Void, that they also went into Sith alchemy and went into Jedi using alchemy, which I think is what they
Yeah,
use with the Rancor dragon and the creatures that they're raising here in the Dawn of the
taming
Jedi
them. Yeah,
comics, which is really cool.
right. I felt like there should have been more reference that was put in the novel by Tim Levin to reference the comics more. I much preferred the
Mm.
comics to the novel.
Yeah, I think I much prefer the comics as well. At the same time, I think if he tried to connect it too much, it might have interfered with the ongoing story that was going on.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's a possibility that they wanted to make sure he avoided that.
In Eruption, the short story, John Ostrander kind of wrote that and kind of tied the book a little bit better to the comics and kind of set up
Mm.
both a bit there.
Yeah, because I read the book without reading the comics first when I first read it, and it was interesting. A lot of it, I had trouble grasping exactly how the universe was set up from the start of the book, thinking of that
What was crazy to me when reading
compared
the
to the
book,
comics.
yeah, well, the thing about the book was what we're thinking was we're ancient times in the Star Wars universe already, and
Mm.
yet in the book there are quotes every chapter from Jedi thousands of years before the book. So they already had set up tons of years prior to the books,
Yeah,
which were so isolated already. So that's could have set up so much more
like
stories.
Force Storm, you see, it's already been thousands of years from the first issue of Force Storm and how they go through their history.
Yeah,
There's so much potential there.
I really liked how they set up that first issue. A
Because it's
little
been so long that you have whole civilization of non-force sensitives living in this era now, in the
right.
Typhon system. The nice kick to the face.
Yeah, and
I
I like
like
how.
how her outfits change from a lighter color to a darker color.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That's symbolic.
I like how the art kind of springs from the page a bit. That the it's all really
Yeah.
nice
It looks like she's sort
visually.
of jumping off the barrel towards you, sort of thing.
Yeah,
And she's got two shorter swords. So the first
yeah, kind of like
instance that we see of dual wielding.
yeah, and kind of the what do you call them? The shorter lightsabers that are eventually used, the
Yeah.
Shotos.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
So I think that was her sword
y-
was cut in two by the Force Saber, so they ended up forging them into
yeah,
two shorter ones, which is
right, and
interesting.
maybe she used that kind of style going forward, and that kind of influenced
Yeah.
using a lightsaber and a Shoto combined later.
That wasn't until they ended up getting sort of one Force Saber each.
Yeah, in
Yeah.
Force War.
Yeah.
What was interesting here is that in the first arc of Dawn of the Jedi, they kind of set up maybe romance between Shakota and Zesh, and then in this one
Yeah.
with Zesh under the influence of Dagon Locke, and he and Shakota are ripped onto different sides, which was an interesting dynamic.
Yeah. That's cool. And I notice how she has a backhand sort of style, which reminds me of Xian later on with
Right?
Galen Marek and that.
Yeah.
And how, I mean, obviously it's based in some real world sword play and sword stuff. How you use a sword. However you say that. I'm like, sword martial arts? No, that doesn't sound quite right. Sword arts. And then, yes, you get a big octopus creature, of course.
Yeah. No, when I first saw that, I was trying to connect to think have we seen a creature like that before? And I was trying to make it into a sarlacc. I was trying to think what it could be, but it's really different than anything else we saw, I think.
Yeah. And of course, this is thousands of years, so this could have eventually evolved into the Sarlacc.
Into the sarlacc, yeah.
But it's also like as an example of me reading the Knights of the Old Republic comics, the Exogorths are the space slugs that we see in Empire Strikes Back.
Yes.
And I read some of the back letters, and they actually confirmed that, which is really cool.
Yeah, that is really.
And so that was, I mean, they're doing all these fantastical fantasy style creatures, but you could easily go, oh, this lost some of the suction cuffs and stuff, and the Sarlacc evolved over thousands of years to be something else. But this is, I mean, obviously down here it's different.
Yeah.
This actually sort of looks like, Dianoga.
Yeah.
The ancestor of the Dianoga. Of course, you get a giant Dianoga in Shadows of the Empire, the video game. So,
yeah,
you never know.
And then in Dark Forces and all the sewer levels, kind of going down there, pop up, take your health.
I think that a lot of them seem smaller.
Yeah, those are
in the one in Shadows of the Empire,
ones,
but yeah.
So maybe
that's probably because they'd only had the one in A New Hope, and then they went, oh, they must be smaller.
Maybe the species are like related, not the same species.
Yeah. And then we have kissy time, even though they're supposed to be fighting.
Yeah. Well, I think
because he realizes he couldn't just let her die.
Yeah. We kind of see that Dagan is not completely brainwashed Zesh to his side. Maybe there's still some good in him after what the Rakata and Dagan did to him.
Yeah. Because the Rakatans built up his fortitude so much to brainwashing, probably. And having to resist brainwashing from others that may try and use that against them would be one of the Force Hound things I have to learn, I would guess. Like, looking at the art here, it looks really good when it's got the liquids and dripping off of Zesh and all that.
Yeah,
and then going on to Shay.
Yeah. There's a lot of attention to detail throughout it.
Yeah. And we have, of course, Trill's doing her thing there, yeah. Just doing it.
And I really liked how Hawk looked. Now, what I always thought, maybe not on this specific image, but Hawk's face in certain panels reminded me of Cade Skywalker's face. His face in certain panels reminded me a little bit of Cade.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that a Gungan fighter who I had on last time was mentioning, is there's a lot of similarities between the comics that John Ostrander does. And I guess with the same artists, then you get sort of stuck with, these are the faces that they can do really well, so they reuse some of the same shapes and the face structure a bit, probably.
Yeah.
That may be something that it looks really good, but maybe they could have made more variety so that it doesn't look as much like Cade Skywalker.
I mean, and it would take you reading all of them to find out that there is similarities there.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there's Master Rajaviri, which is really cool.
Yeah. He
created, what was it? I will check before I do mention that.
He kind of made the I always say Jedi for the Dawn of the Jedi. And he kind of formed them into the order we know from the movies, kind of more.
Yeah, recognized for his leadership and wisdom. I was just thinking, where was the part here? Oh yeah, it's the part where you have to go against Nolan Rallock and you find the Fount of Rajaviri. Yeah. I was mixing him up with the person that created the first saber. because I remembered on
Right.
Tython in SWOTOR that you have to find the first saber as well.
Yeah.
So that is where you check. Yeah. And so it's pretty cool to see him, how they connected together and so much.
Yeah, I agree.
Here's where we get a backstory on where they show all the Rakatans
Yes,
there, and
the
that is very
Infinity
much.
Gates and stuff like that.
Yeah, which is really cool. They just introduced the Infinity Gates, and then we didn't see what actually happened with it.
Now, for some reason, I've seen
I don't know
people
how they did
online
all that.
criticizing Dawn of the Jedi and Infinity Gates in general, and the whole Infinity Gates thing in Star Wars being a blatant ripoff of Marvel's Infinity Stones. And looking at the actual material Infinity Gates appears in, other than the name, there's really no similarities.
No, the Infinity Gates are what is allowing transportation to the other sides of the universe, basically.
Yeah.
Whereas the Infinity Gauntlet and Infinity Stones and whatever in Marvel give different powers for each stone you're using, and it's like
Yeah.
that's
So
completely different.
I see people saying stuff like that, and I think it just goes to show you that many of the people who criticize the EU have not even looked into it that much.
Yeah, you need to actually read the stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, you saw that? Oh, you searched something Infinity Gate, I guess, because you might have been looking at Infinity Gate for Marvel. You saw the name and it came up on Wikipedia, and you went, "Oh, that must be something that's a ripoff."
Yeah. Well, the whole look of the Infinity Gate there looks really cool in my opinion.
And
It
very
looks,
much a mix of sci-fi and fantasy look, which is really cool.
I agree, like the rocks and everything looks very primitive, and yet the bright yellow there for the, I don't know,
And
laser
I
beams
think,
almost, it looks like.
yeah, and I think that what these comics do best is they perfectly blend for the era that they're in, fantasy and science fiction.
Yeah, and it's
Whereas
good that
later
they
on
did
in the
that, yeah.
timeline, it focuses a bit more on some science fiction. Here's the time when you can really focus more on fantasy, and they get that blend really well.
Right, and I think some of that fantasy feeling carries over a little bit to Tales of the Jedi. There's a bit of that feel in Tales of the Jedi as well. Not as much
Yeah, for
as
sure.
Dawn of the Jedi, but
Yeah. And of course, they wanted to make probably Tales of the Jedi similar enough to the original trilogy that they didn't alienate fans that weren't really going to be open to something that was so different.
right.
And so they had to build up to it.
The whole reason Tales of the Jedi was created was because with George Lucas focusing on the prequel era, the Dark Horse Comics people wanted to make comics, and there was still rumors and speculation about prequels coming out, and they knew they weren't allowed to go into that era, so they had to find somewhere else. And so I'm glad that they chose to go way back in time to explore some of the past for the first
Yeah,
time.
it's really cool. And I was just looking at this and having a laugh at how he poked his tongue out when he was electrocuted. This shows how they're enslaving force sensitives and
Which
torturing them
reminded
to
me of,
power their ships.
which is what I was saying, is reminding me of the Force Unleashed, what they did with the clones of Galen, kind of similar visually.
Yeah.
Is what I think. But
Visually
then,
very similar to cloning, yeah.
yeah, but the process of them powering their ships goes back to the Rook from
Yeah,
Chasing
there's a lot
Okura.
of similarities
Yeah,
with them in that case. Right, but rather than taking their soul or essence or whatever, they
yeah,
physically keep them in the
yeah.
capsules.
It's maybe a
This guy
more,
looks so happy. This guy,
yeah,
like, yeah, I did it! Whoa!
yeah. That
That's
facial
great.
expression is kind of funny.
But I love how you can show those different facial expressions. That's
Yeah,
how
with
the art's good, even between different species.
like they don't look human at all, and yet they can still put some emotion into it. which is cool.
Yeah.
They always look like frogs to me. So
Frogs.
yeah,
Yeah.
amphibious species.
But yeah, they sort of do. And they sort of have almost saber pikes there, don't they? Because they've got such a long
Yeah,
handle on it.
yeah. And then I like
Which is
how
pretty cool.
an orangish yellow. It looks really good in that scene against the kind of dead uh background colors, kind of the browns
Yeah.
and
It
tans.
really matches the kind of color tones of the distraction
Yeah,
they leave in their wake, which is really cool.
I liked how the ricotta were different shades as well, like browns and greens and blues and tans and
Yeah, they
stuff.
didn't just make them boring. Oh, they can all be the same color. Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty nice.
Then the Jedi finally realizing that Dagon Lock's vision's coming true, and they're like, "Oh, maybe we shouldn't have
Yeah.
sent him there."
It's funny because the Jedi are the heroes, and yet they seem to be so wrong about various things all the time.
Yeah, they're supposed to be wise, but they're pretty wrong about a lot of things.
Even in the early days of their order.
Yeah, I guess that's what really shows the first example of how when they don't have an enemy they're fighting against, they do stagnate a lot in their pace and get a lot of things wrong if there's an issue that does come up again. And that's a recurring theme that comes with the prequels as well, as they had 1,000 years of peace and then, oh no, we don't know how to deal with this now. So, yeah.
Yeah.
And we have the last issue. So that looks really cool as well, with the lightning arcing around and everything.
Oh yeah. And there's Zesh with the Arabesh shrong on his face. Is it?
Yes. Oh, it's Osk. Yeah, it's. I'll show you. Hang on.
Yeah,
I
I
just
see
got to
the
look up an image
Arabesh
of it.
alphabet. Yeah. No, Dagon Walk in that image looks a bit like a pirate, maybe.
He does. Yeah, he's got an earring and stuff as well,
Yeah.
which would definitely
Points
look like
back to
that.
Cade Skywalker a little bit.
Mm. So I just need to swap this over. But we have Yorubesh here. This is Osk.
Ah, yes.
And Zesh is here. It's got the pointed top on it.
Ah, so
So they're
that's the
very
mistake they made.
similar.
Yeah.
Well, they made the mistake of probably making the top part too long.
Right. Now, have you memorized and could you write or read fluently in Arabesh?
Not fluently. I haven't taken the time to, honestly. But
Yeah,
if I have a reference like this, I can
you
work it
can
out.
decipher it. And
Yeah.
there's tons of fan pages dedicated to them figuring out all the background text in different comic books.
Yeah. And some of the stuff is just like I'm walking around SWOTOR playing it, and I pull up this sort of image and go, oh, what does that mean? Work it out a little bit. Like some of them,
Right.
like Osk, I remember more because of the whole Zesh and Osk thing. I remember those
Yeah.
two fairly well. And Orek is fairly distinctive because it's done a lot of things.
Yeah. I could maybe think without the thing I could probably think of like two or three of the names of the
Yeah.
actual characters, but other than that, I've not really
Yeah.
gone into that
Trill,
as
you
much
can
as maybe I
see
should have.
is the symbol that's on her face.
Yeah, that goes over her nose and forehead.
Yeah. So that's
Yeah.
cool. So I would hazard a guess at saying that they have a force hound for every letter in Aurebesh.
Yeah, it would be cool to learn the stories of those people if we'd ever gotten
Mm,
more Dawn of the Jedi comic books.
yeah. Because it seems
If we
like
could have.
Trill and Zesh are the only ones we see at this point, but maybe previously there were more and stuff happened to them, or they're doing other things in the universe.
Yeah, on their own conquests that we'll never get to learn about.
Yep. Fun times. Oh, that was that one. That's some of the Orabesh. We don't have many people joining us at this time, but oh well. We're having fun. We're talking about it.
Definitely, I barely get to talk to people about the Legends universe, the universe I love, so it's really great.
Yeah, I still call it EU.
Yeah.
Just because they haven't used Expanded Universe for the new canon. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, look, there's a reference to Princess Leia's outfit in Return of the Jedi. Which is cool. But yeah, this is Tasha's father, I believe they're going
the
to,
Crime
which
Lord.
is interesting.
They're going to see what they can do. Is Dagan trying to recruit him to his side?
I think that was it.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, it was Queen Hadia still had the loyalist in Shikakwa. I think I was thinking of Shikakwa was the first despot, but that's from the Essential Guide to Warfare. Not this. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's cool to see her in action.
Yeah, there she is. Yeah, and then how Dagan Locke was supposed to infiltrate there and get close to her to be the Jedi spy, I guess, in the spot war.
Interesting parallels to what happens in Force War.
Yeah, for sure. And then he killed her, and he was the one she trusted most, and he betrayed that trust and killed her.
Yeah. Sad story. Oh, that's symbolic. Look at it. Go straight from that flashback to Seknos and Trill.
Yeah. And it's really interesting to see how
before.
Yeah, it's interesting too to see how in this they're starting to build their partnership kind of together, and how it climaxes in Force War, but it could have been so much more fleshed out if they had more time. Could have
for sure.
expanded on it a lot more, which is my only problem with Dawn of the Jedi, how abrupt it had to end.
Yeah, and that's not really its own fault, which is unfortunate. Yeah. I would say Lucasfilm could have actually done a transition from EU to new canon, but oh no, they didn't want to do that.
Nope.
Anyway. What we got here again? Oh yeah, we got him getting blasted.
He's got sighted on them with the drone thing.
Yeah. With a little droid that was probably automatically trying to protect him, but then it failed.
Yeah. And then here comes Seknos and the other Jedi there.
Yeah. It looks really cool when you just got a whole bunch of debris flying in the air.
Yeah. And then running up the rocks is kind of cool there.
Yeah. Some cool use of the environment, which when I think of what they could do with Star Wars in live action, they could do this sort of stuff now. They can do
like with what we saw in the Hobbit movie with Legolas running up this tower. Have you seen those movies? Can you recall that? Running up the falling debris. Yeah.
And doing all the awesome stuff. There's a lot of possibilities for scenario that'll look really cool as well. But
you could do it several ways.
And then,
if you did movies based on the expanded universe, you could go the route of I don't know, making in the Old Republic cinematic trailers, you can see the Force being used, in blasts, is being shown on this comic panel here.
Also, I was thinking of the X-Wing series and how they could do dogfights in the rain really well.
Yeah. There's a lot that could be done now, which would be so exciting if they'd only do it.
Yeah. But yeah, Seknos getting angry. Surprise, surprise, the Sith gets angry. Yeah.
And we heard even from the first arc that he stretched the boundaries of what they were supposed to do.
Yeah. Because they
Seknos said
feel
he
him
kind of,
drawing.
yeah, he drew on
They could
Bogan a bit more.
Yeah. They were feeling him drawing on the dark side to use the Force Lightning, basically.
Yeah.
Which I find quite interesting. And then, oh no, his own Force Lightning trick comes back at him.
Yeah.
He's like, oh no, I didn't have a defense for what I created.
I don't recall, did we ever get to see Force Sabers, as they're called right now, deflect Force Lightning in the Dawn of the Jedi comics?
I don't think so.
If not,
Well, we can always check again with Force War. But maybe that's something that, because the different way they're made when they're actual lightsabers happens as well.
Right. Because Force Lightning is dark, and so are the Force Sabers currently, so maybe that doesn't work like it did.
Oh, they don't say about what Trill's species is. I was just wondering, because I'm like, she looks like a different species, but we don't have a species for her.
I always thought she looked a bit like the Arcanians a little, with the white eyes with no pupils.
Yeah, a bit more like the offshoots.
Yeah.
And I was also thinking she sort of looks similar to Aura Singh.
That's true. Yeah, and we did find out
and could be the same species as her father.
Yeah, her father was an ancient species, supposedly. So.
Yeah, that we don't know the species of, so maybe Trill's of the same species.
Trill also looks a bit like Jarail, which is Jarail from the KOTOR comics.
Jarail is an offshoot Arcanian.
Yeah,
which is cool.
So that's kind of why I thought that.
Yeah, there's similarities for sure.
And then there's Hawk Ryu's love interest, I guess, and that was also the Thor lookalike Jedi's sister, I believe.
Oh yeah, female Thor, yeah. And then he's That's interesting how Dagan uses his skill here, because he just keeps reminding him about the vision that they had. Yeah. And then it's interesting because you see Dagan Locke's fairly level-headed here, but the Jedi themselves are getting angrier and angrier.
The Jedi are getting more emotional, it seems, and angry, while the guy who was insane did kind of calm down a bit and collect his nerves. It's very interesting.
Yeah. You see him poking holes in the way they're doing things just because of their denial. It's cool. And he's saying about, do you want Jedi to forsake the balance and that sort of thing? It's like, well, you can't have
very interesting
balance when they're going to get attacked.
Yeah, and that's the whole Jedi philosophy, is basically how far do we go to preserve the peace and the light side that we are trying to protect. And in this case, it's not light side, it's kind of balance they strive to keep.
Oh, and they make a crackle sound here, when they touch. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the sound for his leg sliced back there.
Yeah.
And then I do like and I do like Jay Coda again drawing on her anger like she did in Force Storm to activate the Force Saber, this time to attack Zesh and Dagan.
Yeah. And she uses it seems like she uses the Force to call it to her hand as well, which is cool.
Yeah.
Little callbacks to things we've seen before. Oh, this is really cool, yeah.
Yeah.
This bottom panel
is really well done. Yeah.
Hmm. And then Locke going into his mind, and Dagon Locke's like,
Yeah.
"Oh no, I done messed up now."
Yeah, because Zesh's mind is not somewhere he'd like to be. And so Zesh uses that against him, doesn't it? Doesn't he?
Yeah, he's got so much pain and suffering that he can just project onto Locke that he would have
Yeah, the
never
emptiness, the
encountered
loneliness,
before.
yeah. It's all very well done. The story, the art.
Yeah,
John Ostrander and Jander Semmer worked really well together.
yeah. I almost thought as well here there's a possibility for Seknos and Shakoda having a relationship.
Yeah, I noticed that as well. I wondered about that. I always felt more of them as maybe brother and sister, maybe more
Yeah,
friends. Really good, close
more
friends.
familial type friendship than
Yeah. I
that.
mean, they
But
probably
there's the
trained together from
possibility.
youth.
Yeah, so they would have known each other really well. And we start going into everything else. It's
Yeah.
Dagon starting to sort of gather his loyal
Yeah.
subjects, which is interesting. And it very much looks like this pod thing. Oh yeah, the thing that she sends out, the little beacon,
Yeah.
visually reminds me of the Solar Sailor
Yeah.
a bit. Oh,
Mhm.
it's obviously different, but it's good they made it
Yeah.
different.
It's really cool,
Mm,
regardless. It reminds me of at the end of one of the Quinlan Voss Republic arcs, Callie, hence Quinlan Voss's girlfriend, sending out the a drone to give her how it flies from her hands, and you see it going across kind of space,
mm.
and it's by the same artist at the end of a comic arc, so it's kind of similar concept, maybe.
Oh yeah, this panel shows as well. It can be really unfortunate. I gotta just change my screen. I don't know if it's intentional, but it ends up being really interesting how it looks like an arrow.
Yeah. Is that an Arabesh? Is that an Arabesh
That, I think that's meant to be
symbol?
Trill, because I mean it's on Trill.
Trill, yeah.
But it ends up
Just
looking so
yeah.
unfortunate that it looks like an arrow
Yeah.
pointing down that way. I just noticed that and had a little laugh the first time I saw it. And
Yeah,
then her reporting
so
back.
many characters, you're bound to make a mistake somewhere. Yeah,
Yeah.
reporting back to
And I mean, it's
Okada.
when you zoom in as well. And I know I'm not that good an artist, so okay, but what's really interesting here is we see all these pods that look like the Starforge.
Yeah, yeah. And that makes
All these
sense that their
ships.
tech would overlap in different parts of their
Yeah.
architecture. That's really cool.
And I think, was it in this one? Not
Yeah,
quite in
and
this one, but that's all their ships and that. But they,
yeah,
it's
and
interesting. Yeah.
it, it,
They
it
look
was a
like
really
the ship with the Death Star laser built into it.
yeah. Was that from what was that from? The ships with the Death Star laser built into it.
Uh, I forget. Hang on.
Was that one of the new canon stuff?
I
Or
don't
was
know.
that
I
part of the
remember
EU?
seeing fan art of it, but I forget if it's an actual thing.
Well, I really like how this panel leaves things off for this
Yeah.
arc with the impending attack.
I think it must have just been this piece of fan art, which is interesting because maybe they were inspired by it. But yeah, it leaves it off really well.
Yeah. It
And
does. It gets
the
you really
suspense of,
excited
oh,
for the
what's
next
gonna
arc.
happen next?
Yeah.
Which is cool.
And then it felt like it was more rushed than it should have been when you get to that. So
Yeah. Especially the pacing of these past couple of stories. Yeah, I was thinking of this one.
yeah.
That sort of reminds me of it, but I think this is only fan
Yeah.
art. But
Yeah, it looks very similar.
so possibly they were influenced by some of the fan art going around.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Also, I guess it's like that whole middle part of the ship sort of looks like the droid control ship, sort
Yeah.
of pod
Yeah.
in the middle. And also, like what they put in the Star Forge, they sort of have the middle cockpit as like a. It's the same on every ship, and then they just change the outside.
Yeah.
Which would be
Yeah.
interesting if they do have sort of technology that just interchanges with each other and can go into different places.
Yeah, that's a cool idea.
Yeah. Cool. Well, anything else you want to mention?
I really, if you can't tell, really enjoyed the Dawn of the Jedi comics. I read them first, so reading Dawn of the Jedi Into the Void after that felt like a letdown. It's not really any
Yeah.
characters interchanged between them. So I really enjoyed the comic series. The art was great. The story was great. The characters were enjoyable to read and learn a bit more about. In this arc, I feel like there were more reveals about kind of what was left a bit of a mystery in the first arc. So this was actually my favorite arc of the Dawn of the Jedi
Mm.
comics. I liked it better than Force Storm because Force Storm felt isolated to one planet, and this one felt more open to where the story could go. And I enjoyed the whole chasing down scene. The as they're chasing them down between planets, the Jedi are chasing Locke and Zesh, and Force War just felt rushed. So this one, the pacing was like in between. It wasn't too slow, but not too fast
Yeah.
either until kind of the end. So I really enjoyed how this arc went.
Yeah, I think it'd probably be my favorite out of the 3 arcs as well, probably. Because Force Wars, yeah, they couldn't do much about it. I think it would have worked really well if it had to build up to it. But because
Yeah,
it
if it
didn't,
was
it sort of
fleshed out a bit
jumps
more.
pacing too much.
But I really am thankful that they
Everything's
got
fine.
that out before Disney took over. So otherwise, we really wouldn't
Yeah,
have
for
known
sure.
what happened.
I'm glad they didn't just cut it short like we had for a lot of the novels. I find that it was just cut
Yeah.
off, and then it's like, oh, that's
Yeah.
it.
After Crucible.
Because they didn't tell Troy Denning it would be the last EU book. Otherwise, he would have done things different with it. Anyway, that's part of the other problem of it. But we're enjoying what we have. It's good.
Yeah.
So I might leave it here then. I think that pretty much sums up my sort of thoughts as well as we've gone throughout. I really enjoy these. They're good. I think it's just a lot of world building that's done really well that would have set up a lot of other great stories, but then they haven't happened. Also, well, oh, yeah. If you're wondering throughout the whole thing, I did cut my hair today, so there's that, and that's good. And I'm pretty much done. Is there anything you would like to plug or say that you're doing or anything like that?
Not really. I'm just continuing to go through different books and provide news for the Expanded Universe and share that throughout multiple sites to make sure there's awareness still being spread about the little that's still going on in this universe.
Yeah,
So,
I was just
thank
finding
you for
this
having
for
me
you.
on.
Yeah, thank you for joining. It's been good. And it's probably really weird that it did the channel. Not really. I think it's when you get to a certain point you can customize the link. But yeah, that's good. You do some YouTube stuff, but I've noticed that you don't really talk a lot on that.
Nope.
That's fine.
Especially, yep.
And good fun. Hopefully we can work out a time that works out best for everyone, because there was really no one joining today, which is unfortunate. Yeah. So I've been trying a different time so that he can come on, and then when it was earlier in the day, more people seem to be able to make it. And of course, it is early for you in the US as well. So
yeah,
I think earlier might still work better as far as engagement goes.
Yeah.
But I'll see if we can work out a time that you can join, because it is once a month. It's not like it's an every week thing.
Yeah.
Hopefully you can figure it out. But yeah, thank you for everyone joining. I'm going to go live on Twitch in about an hour and a half-ish, because I play other games and stuff on there too. So if you want more streams and stuff, you can jump on there, because I tend to live stream on there more because it seems to be better for streaming, at least in my opinion, with the audience interaction and things that we can do and all that. But yeah, otherwise, thank you for watching back probably now, because there's not many people joining. And we'll see you next time. Next month will be the EU Holocron, and we will be doing Dawn of the Jedi Force War. See ya. Do you want to say see you too?
Yeah.